We're going to be talking about Lydia today, but I just want to tell you first, I have very unrefined taste buds. I remember hearing somewhere that you're born with that what some people have more refined taste. I'm just going to tell you, I am very simple when it comes to my taste. Some might make fun of me and think that I don't have very good taste. I'm like, Chili's on a date night. That's awesome. Because they have the chocolate molten lava cake. And when I good, all right. When I discovered the chocolate molten lava cake, I was like, this is the best thing that was ever created. My kids were a lot younger at the time, and what would make someone like me pack up 7 kids, a few in car seats, and go by herself and take them to Chili's? The chocolate molten lava cake. That's exactly what it was. And I would go, I only did it a couple times with them, and we would get a couple chocolate molten lava cakes and a bunch of spoons, and we would just sit and everybody's eyeballing everybody else like, you're not taking an extra big bite, are you? Because this is all we have. And I was thankful for the kid that was like, can I just have French fries? I'm like, yes, more chocolate molten lava cake for the rest of us, And so this is my taste. It's this and things like this. But we have some friends that are a little more refined, and some might argue they have better taste. And these are my world traveling friends, and I love them. I live vicariously through them sometimes. And we were out one Sunday night. A couple of our friends asked us to go out to Joe's Liberty Market. Have you guys been there? Joe's Liberty Market in Gilbert. Okay, so we're sitting there one Sunday night, and we're just kind of like, dinner's over, so we're just, ordering stuff, and just like eating little things. And one of my friends ordered creme brulee. And they brought the creme brulee out, and we were all sharing it, we had the 4 spoons. And I took a few bites, and I'm like, this is the best thing I've ever had. This is so good. This is so good. It really, goodbye chocolate molten lava cake. Because the creme brulee was awesome. Okay, now I know I wasn't in another country or anything, but hey, for an unrefined taste bud girl like me, this creme brulee was so good. So I was just kind of fixated on this for a while. And I went back to Joe's Liberty Market and tried to order the creme brulee. And they're like, oh, I'm sorry, we don't have that today. And I'm like, what? You don't have it? I know. And so I tried. I actually have probably tried a couple times to do that. In fact, I even called them to ask them if they had creme brulee that day because I really wanted to have it. And they apparently only have this every once in a while when the chef decides to make it. So I'm like, I probably need to talk to the chef. That's my next step. But if you follow their Instagram, they'll tell you when they're going to have creme brulee. I mean, hopefully you're in the vicinity when it's on the menu, So you're not out of state or something and you can't have it. So I tried, but apparently I talked about this enough times that one of my kids for my birthday this last year found a local bakery and bought me 2 little creme brulees. It was awesome. They're so good. I mean, I think that hospitality, good hospitality, is kind of like tasting creme brulee for the first time. We don't even know. I mean, we're going through life thinking we have everything awesome that life has to offer. And we have all kinds of good things. And we're just living our best life, and then we taste creme brulee. And then somebody hosts us with godly hospitality, and all of a sudden, it's like our taste buds are woken up. The heart behind this kind of hospitality is a transformed heart that wants to share God's love. That is what is behind that kind of hospitality. And if you've been the recipient of it, you know what I mean. So we're talking about Lydia. And the thing about Lydia that strikes me most is this moment of hospitality. Actually, her lifetime of hospitality. But we see it beginning right here in Acts chapter 16. Lydia did not She wasn't born in Philippi. She moved to Philippi. This was a new place for her. It was a new town, and she brought her household with her, and she had a business. She sold purple cloth, and purple cloth was something that was made and sold in the country that she came from, and she brought that to Philippi, and she brought her whole household with her. Okay, she wasn't Jewish. So she was a Gentile, like most of us. But somewhere along the path of her life, she became a worshiper of God. Somewhere in her journey, she began to worship God. But she comes to Philippi, which it calls, the scripture calls this the foremost city in Macedonia. There was most likely, though, a very small Jewish population, because apparently Jewish law says you've got to have 10 Jewish men, and as soon as you do, you build a synagogue. And there was no synagogue in Philippi. So apparently there were so few Jewish worshipers of God in Philippi. But that did not stop Lydia. Lydia gathered with a group of women down by the riverside to pray and worship. This is what Lydia did. So Paul, Luke, and Silas arrive in Philippi. And what does Paul normally do? We should all know this by now. He looks for the synagogue. He's going to go start preaching and telling people about Jesus in the synagogue. So he looks, and lo and behold, there is no synagogue. So it seems like maybe he was there for a couple days. And then one day on the Sabbath, he sees a group of women down by the riverside praying. And so he goes to these ladies to tell them about Jesus. And he begins to tell Lydia, who happens to be there, and the other people, the other women, about Jesus. And I'm going to read to you from Acts 16, beginning at verse 13. It says, let me find verse 13. And on the Sabbath day, we went out of the city to the riverside where prayer was customarily made. And we sat down and we spoke to the women who met there. Now a certain woman named Lydia heard us. She was a seller of purple from the city of Thyatira who worshiped God. The Lord opened her heart to heed the things spoken by Paul. And when she and her household were baptized, she begged us, saying, if you have judged me to be faithful to the Lord, come to my house and stay. And so she persuaded us. It was in this moment, Lydia, a worshiper of God, someone who was seeking after God, not yet a Christian. She worshiped God, but she wasn't a Christian yet. She hadn't heard the good news of Jesus. She hadn't heard the gospel until Paul came and shared that with her. And all of a sudden, Lydia encounters something better than what she's ever tasted before. This woman who was drawn to worship God, though she was not Jewish, all of a sudden had tasted creme brulee. All of a sudden, she is like, she gives her whole life to Jesus. And not only that, you got to love this lady. She brings her whole household. They all get baptized. Can you imagine it? I kind of have this picture of Lydia, and she's like, wait, hold on just a second. Don't leave. Don't move. I got to run home really quick. You just stay right here. And they're like, okay. And so she runs home, and she grabs her whole household. I can see her busting in. Get your shoes on. Let's go, everybody, right now. And, of course, when you do that as a mom, all the kids have a million, where are we going? What are we doing? Why do I have to get my shoes on? I'm tired. I don't want to do, right? You can just hear it. And she's dragging her whole household, and she's like, let's go. And she comes back and she brings them all, and she's like, okay, tell them what you told me. And I imagine he told her whole household. And they were certainly under her influence and had been, they knew she was a worshiper of God. And they all give their life to Jesus, and they all get baptized right in that moment. I don't even know if her whole household included more than just her children, but it says her household. And she's like, okay, Paul, you guys need to come stay with me. And I don't know what was going on in her head because, just a little while later in this little town, Paul is beaten. They're not necessarily friendly to the Christians. And she might have understood that. Like, we got to get you guys off the street. You need to come to my house. In fact, I'm begging you to come to my house. And she begged them and persuaded them. She begged them by saying, if you judged me to be faithful to the Lord, come to my house and stay. And she persuaded them. And this relationship goes on and continues for years. The church in Philippi is born right here, right now. And later on, years later, Lydia is still hosting the family of God in her house. And there's a growing number. When Paul's released from prison, he goes to Lydia's house to meet with the brethren. That's where the church was. She becomes a church leader right there. And what's striking is that this newly saved, freshly baptized person right away sees a need for hospitality and meets it. And I would call it radical hospitality. Paul probably was not a safe person to host in your home. Clearly, he got on the wrong side of people in power because he ends up getting beaten. He ends up getting thrown in prison. Later on, when Paul is thrown into prison, I don't want to tell the whole story, but I'll just say he gets out of prison, and the jailer who was guarding him, who was hosting him in prison, all of a sudden turns to hosting him in his home. And Paul leads his whole household to the Lord. So the point I'm really trying to make is this. God's heart is a hospitable heart. It is, when we're hospitable, we're actually partnering with God. We're partnering with him. There's just something about us that when we give our life to the Lord, when we receive the Holy Spirit, there's something about us that just wants to open our arms wide and say, all right, everybody, let's go. You know, you just want to tell people. You want to bring your gatherer all of a sudden. You want to gather the family together. And, you know, we might disqualify ourselves. When we think about hospitality, a lot of times we're thinking about it like we see it with Lydia. And we're thinking, but I don't have a house. Or my house is ugly. Or my house is never clean. Nobody wants to come into my house, you know. Or, you know, all I have is a bedroom. Or, you know, I don't know. This is the thing that we think, right? Anybody ever thought it? I have. I see everything wrong with my house. And I'm like, nobody wants to come in and look at all that, things that are wrong with my house. One day I'll be hospitable when, you name it. Have you said it? One day I'll be hospitable when, But there is certainly a place for this radical hospitality. And it's hard to go on and talk about hospitality without mentioning the author of The Gospel Comes with a House Key. And I'm just going to briefly mention her because this isn't going to be our focus for today. But Rosario Butterfield has written a book called The Gospel Comes with a House Key. And her story is quite an amazing story. She was as liberal as you could be. She was as liberal as you could be. She was a part of a university, and she wrote a paper that I think was a university-published paper. You're going to have to read the book to clarify all the details. Please come back and tell me everything that I got wrong. But I'm going to get the main gist. I'm telling you that. So she writes this story, and it's read by this sweet little couple, these Christians, and they read her paper, and they reply. But back in the day, I think they replied by mail. Like they had to write a letter and send it back. And so she gets that mail, and they had invited her to dinner. And she's like, oh my gosh, this is like, I'd be going to dinner with the enemy. Like I can't go to this dinner, but she decides to for research sake. She goes for research. She's going to research the enemy. The enemy has invited her into their camp, and she's going to go listen to everything and get some fuel for her next paper, I guess. And so Rosario comes to their house, and she has dinner with them. And she said it was really hard. She talks about crossing the threshold into their home, like how it was difficult for her to do that. But she didn't just do that once. Rosario kept coming to this little couple's house. And she would eat dinner with them. She ended up coming to their small group. She was there. Sometimes they worshiped. Sometimes they prayed. They read the Bible together. But Rosario was changed. She was changed. Somewhere in there, God opened her heart to receive the word. They weren't trying to convince her. They weren't pounding anything down. They didn't welcome her into her home and give her like the big list of everything she needed to change to be okay. They just hosted her. They shared God's love with her. And you know what? She was changed. She is a believer who practices radical hospitality now. If you showed up at her house, which I don't know where she lives, so I couldn't send you there. But if you showed up at her house, she would have a pot of beans and some bread for you. She always keeps them. She hosts people all the time. She can't understand a Thanksgiving where you don't have enough seats for everybody. She's like, you just go sit out on the trampoline. Everybody has a place at this house. And she has lived this way for years and seen God do miraculous works, because what happens when somebody is welcomed and hosted with this kind of hospitality is there's something of God's love that is communicated in those moments. There's something that God does in the heart of somebody when we're hosted with good hospitality like that. I'm not talking about perfect hospitality. Sometimes that's more uncomfortable than it needs to be. You know, like Andrew and I decided when we got married, and boy, did we stay true to this. We said, we don't want to have a house that you can't touch. Like, you know, like be careful where you sit, and we're going to clean it up after you get up. And we're like, we did not want to do that. We wanted a house where you could live in it. And we live in it. Oh, man, do we. I don't even know how many couches we've been through. So many couches. But the best one we had was the one that people would just come and plop right down on, and kind of you could sink and fall asleep in it. Like, it was this big couch, this big blue denim sectional, and we loved it. The best seat was the corner seat, because you really could just melt away. And I remember asking the youth group who we had in our house a lot back then, like, will you guys pray? I need to sell this couch, because it was getting kind of worn, you know. I mean, it was worn. It had had holes. It was worn. And I was like, can you guys pray? And they're like, no, we won't pray for that. They would not pray to help me sell my couch. They loved it. But when we share hospitality, when hospitality is shared with us in such a way, it validates us as people. It says, you're okay. You're worth being with. Somebody loves you. The funny thing that I realized, though, as I was looking at this, is that we actually all host a space all the time. We are all hosts. Could you just turn to the person next to you and say, I am a host? You cannot say, if you don't say it, it doesn't mean it's not true. I'm going to say it to you. If you're not sitting by somebody, you are a host. I'm a host. We are all hosts. People actually come in and out of a space. I'm going to call it my space. We all host a my space. All right. And it's this space around us that people come in and out of all the time. We pass by people. They come into our space. Sometimes we hope they leave really quick. But, we host a MySpace. You are actually a host of a space around you all the time. Unless you just decide to live by yourself and never talk to anybody. But then in that case, you wouldn't be here this morning. We all host a MySpace. It's the person that's in line behind us. It's the person that's standing next to you. It's the kid that bumped into you as you were walking out the door. It's if you're a parent of little kids, you know this to be true. You go to the bathroom for just a moment of private space, and you have fingers that are reaching underneath the door. Or when they get older, they slip you a note. Can I have a piece of chocolate? They can't wait like 30 seconds. They got to slip you a note to ask you. But there are people in our space all the time. And that's actually not a problem. We will be hosting people in our space for the rest of our life. I know that's frightening, actually, probably for some of us, but it's kind of exciting for others of us. But the question is, what is it like to be a guest in your space? Have you ever wondered what it was like for people to encounter you? What's it like to be on the other side of me? I remember I was upstairs, when our kids were young, a little bit younger, and I'm a homeschool mom. And so, I got to keep people on task. Like a lot of little people I had to keep on task all the time. And so I was upstairs, and I could hear all the voices talking, and there's a little bit of arguing, and there's some playing going on, things that shouldn't be in the middle of the school day, right? I was probably just taking a quick bathroom break. But I come downstairs. I heard all the voices upstairs. I come downstairs, and there's nobody. Everybody seems to be gone at first look, There's a kid behind the couch. There's one behind the counter. There's somebody that ran off to a closet to hide really quick. They heard me coming and they scattered. And I have to wonder, what's it like to be on the other side of me? They know I'm going to come downstairs and be like, hey, I don't hear the piano and you're supposed to be practicing and you're supposed to be doing your math, so get over there and do that. What are you fighting about? Let's work it out now. I'm going to come in drill sergeant and get it all straightened out. And they knew it, and so they scattered. So I don't think they were really, some might say I have been mean. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just being the mom. But somebody's got to keep this ship in order, right? When we consider that we're hosting a space around us all the time, then we might also wonder, how can we share something with somebody who I might encounter for maybe even just 30 seconds? And how could I give them a little taste of something good in 30 seconds? How could I do that? Because we pass by people all the time. They come in and out of our space all the time. There's people like this around us. It got me a little bit choked up as I was thinking about these people, because I know that there are certain people here in our church. I know there are certain people, and you might know the people too. But you just stop and say good morning and give a hug, and you're encouraged. How does that happen? How do they do that? They're good at it. They've been thinking about how they want to host the space around them for a long time. And they've determined in their heart, I'm going to host people well. I'm going to host people well. So what is it like to host our My Space with hospitality? With good hospitality, godly hospitality, loving hospitality. What is that like? What does that look like? I have a few ways. You might have more ways. But here's a few that I'm going to share with us. When we're hosting our My Space, and we're wanting to do this with good hospitality, we can share, we can meet, we can lift, and we can, I want to see how we're, let. Share, meet, lift, and let. The first thing is that we can share an experience. I love this. In order to be present in a moment is what you'd need to be if you want to share an experience. Then there's a few things. You can already think of what you can't do when you want to be present in a moment. Am I right? Did you already think of one that you can't do if you want to be present in a moment? I did right away. I'm like, oh, the phone has to be put away. Because when I'm standing in line somewhere or I'm talking to a kid, I could very easily be on my phone. And to be honest, in this day and age, hardly anybody would fault me for that. Because we're on our phones, right? But if I want to be present in a moment, then it's got to go away. It's got to go away for a moment. Unless we're sharing the experience on the phone together. That's a whole other thing. But to share an experience with somebody, we've got to be present in the moment. I think we can do this in a line somewhere. I think we can share a moment even as we're picking up car parts. Like I go get my car parts from Parts Authority, so I know the same people. They know me now because I always buy used cars. And there's a lot of parts you have to buy to keep up those cars. So I'm in Parts Authority regularly. And so I can share a moment with the people at Parts Authority or at the grocery store. And I think we can even share a moment. We can even commiserate maybe sometimes with somebody. The lines are taking a long time. It's kind of frustrating. And I actually think it's an art form to empathize and yet not jump into the super complaining zone, right? It's a skill. It's an art form, but we can do it. I know we can do it. It might sound something like, yeah, that line sure is long. Whew, how are you today? Okay, so then it gives us a little more time to talk, So we can kind of empathize. We can be present in the moment. I had a moment recently with a kid. I teach a couple pickleball classes, and I had one of my kids in the younger pickleball class that I teach was so excited because he just won his first game of pickleball ever. And so we're all standing together. And I could have missed it because it was the whole crowd of kids right there. But I see his little face looking up at me, smiling, so excited. He's like, I just won my first game of pickleball. And so I got to jump into that moment with him like, that's awesome. You know, just be excited with him. Again, nobody would have faulted me if I was distracted or not paying attention. But I got to be present right in that moment. Now, I just want to tell you, this is another one. And this was actually this has to rank in like my top 20. I tried to put it in my top 10, but I got 9 family members there first and Jesus. So that's my top 10. Okay, so I got more than 9 family members, but there's all the things that are in my immediate world. So I put it in my top 20, this experience. I was taking our youth group to camp, and it was just kind of like, it was like the first year we went to summer camp in a long time. We hadn't gone for a while, and I had this small group of youth, and we were spending the week together, and, they do these competitions at camp, and you want to and they go all through the week. Like, you have competitions every day for everything. Like, how did you do in activities? Did you get any extra points because your room was clean? Did you help somebody pick up trash? And the team that monitors that is like giving out points and stuff like that and taking points away, and that sort of thing. Well, I'll tell you, every night when they read off the order of who won, and there were 10 teams, our team was in last place every day. I go, we're not that bad. I mean, we're kind of like a ragtag group, but we're not that bad. What is going on? Partway through, we discovered that you have to clean your room. And all the boys weren't cleaning their room. We're like, all right, you guys, on that? And they're like, we're on that. And so they started cleaning their rooms. So we kind of started climbing a little bit, but we're still pretty far back. And so the end of the week, the last day, and our team was all in. I will tell you, on the attitude front, they were top tier. They participated better. They didn't come grumbly. They weren't trying not to. They were top tier. They were all in. And I think that showed to the camp people that were monitoring, because the last night they start reading off with 10th place, and we're not in 10th place. And I have pictures to prove this. We're sitting on the front row, and I'm the leader. Okay, just keep that in mind, okay? But this was epic. And so we're in 10th place. We're not in 10th place, sorry. And we're like, oh my gosh, we're not in 10th place today. That's awesome. And then we're not in 9th place, and we're still excited, And then we're not in 8th place or 7th place or 6th place, 5th place. We can't believe it. I mean, we're literally like, oh my gosh, we're in the top 4. It was unbelievable. We were so excited to be in the top 4. Our kids are on the edge of their seat, waiting to hear, how far did we actually go, And so they get down to the last 2 teams. We're still in it. The last 2 teams. I mean, all we won at the end of this was an extra hour staying up at night and having ice cream. That is what we won. I just want to tell you. But we get to the last moment, and we won. We got first place. Oh, I was living on that for so long. I was telling people multiple times the same story of how we won. I told this youth pastor friend of mine, and I was like, we won at camp. He goes, I know, you have already said that. And I was like, okay. But it was awesome to be present in the moment with them. It made it more exciting that I was there with them. And nobody would have faulted me if I wasn't even sitting with them. I mean, as a leader, I could have been up in the leader lounge having some nachos or something. I don't know, but I was there with them. I'm not saying that to say how great I am, because I know there's a lot of moments that I've not been present. But it was a wonderful moment to be a part of, and we got to share that together. So be present. Be present. Share the experience. Secondly, we can meet a simple need. A simple need. And I just want to give a warning, because when it comes to doing, good deeds and helping people, there's a lot of risk out there. And we know, some of us are seasoned enough to know that when somebody asks us for something they say they need, it isn't what they actually need. And there's somebody else that's better equipped to help them with that need. So I'm only saying this as a caution, because I am certainly not asking everybody to go out and start meeting all the needs of the first people that they find on the street. There's a lot of those. But I do think it's important that we listen to the Holy Spirit and we meet the need that he's leading us to. And I think there's a way to do this, even in a 30-second, 2-minute time that we're sitting, that we're being somewhere, that we can meet a simple need. There are simple needs all around us. They seem to just show up in a moment. People drop things. They can't figure out where to go. They can't reach something that's up high. We can help with those things. And I also want to say one thing, since we have our kids in here, because as another warning, I always told my kids, there's no adult that needs your help. So can you just, maybe we can pass that on to your kids. There is no adult that needs your help. Okay, pass that on as a caution. But I was going to say the other day I was shopping. Actually, I was returning something at Kohl's, and then I started shopping, of course. I had a couple of my girls with me, and we're standing in line, and we're standing in the line to wait for a person at the register because we have to return something. But if you've been to Kohl's lately, you know they have self-checks. So if you're just going to buy something, just go to the self-check. We're second in line, and there's a man standing right in front of me in line, and the line is taking a really long time. I mean, it was they were taking a very long time. There's a complicated returns happening up there. You know how that is? Like, I want to return this from 1995, and they're trying to figure out what it is, And so we're standing there, and he is getting noticeably frustrated. I mean, he's probably like right here, and I'm right here. And I see in his hand, he just has like a bag of chocolates. And I'm thinking, this is probably the first time this whole year that this man is shopping without his wife, and he's probably buying her chocolates. I mean, I made up the whole story in my mind because I thought it was sweet and cute. I don't really know, but he was buying chocolates. And so he's standing in front of me. He's getting so frustrated. And all of a sudden, he turns around, and I feel like his face is like right here, He's like turns around at me, and he's like so frustrated. And so finally, I'm like, did you know that they have self-checks? It's like right around, like literally right around. And he's like, no. And I'm like, well, is there some reason you're in this line? Like, are you returning something? And he's like, no. And I'm like, well, maybe you could are they open? And I just had my girls say I went over and checked first because I didn't want to tell them to get out of line because that would be especially frustrating. And so I go over and I check, and I'm like, they're all open, And he goes, the lady just told me to get in this line. And I'm like, well, maybe she missed something, like maybe you could do the self-check. And so he's like, okay. And I was like, I'll save your spot. You go try the self-check and see if you can get it to work. And he did. And in the meantime, like, I was able to return what I had, and then I made sure I went over back just in case anything went wrong with his self-check. I didn't want to be responsible for messing up his day even more, And so I go over and help him, and he was fine. And he's so happy. And to be honest, it probably took about the same amount of time as if he would have just continued waiting in line. But, he was empowered. He did the self-check, and he made it. And so I think, and I was like thinking, gosh, I could probably stand around and help people with self-check at Kohl's. I could be like, I could stand at the door. Actually, on that same trip, I was in the fitting room, and I hear somebody, as I'm trying to leave the fitting room, go, is there someone out there? Someone next door to me? And I was like, I think she's talking to me. And I'm like, yeah, I'm out here. She's like, I can't open the door. And I'm like, okay, I just pushed it. But, they do have a little, tension latch thing, right? So she's like, thank you so much. And I thought, gosh, I could go stand at the door of Kohl's and just tell people, hey, I'm here if you need me. $30 an hour. I will help you open the fitting room door and operate the self-check, if you need help. So I was a little money-making plan. I was kind of laughing at myself about that. But we can meet a simple need, can we? We can meet a simple need. We can help somebody. We can lift the heart. Lift the heart. I know who I need to go to when I need to be encouraged. And I know who I need to stay away from when I need to be encouraged. You do too. But our souls are hungry for encouragement. I feel like that's the gift that we just forgot. I forgot about it for a long time. Until I started talking to somebody who really encouraged me. I have someone that I call who encourages me every time we talk. And I don't call and lead in with hey, I really need to be encouraged. I actually don't even say that. I pretend like I'm the mutual friend. But I got to be honest, this person is hosting me and encouraging me. If I'm really honest that's really what's happening. And I have another friend that we have met with for 3 years, once a week, with few exceptions. And every time we talk, which will be an hour and a half to 2.5 hours conversation online, on Zoom, I'm encouraged. I don't know if I would have made it sometimes if I hadn't had those calls with that person, because it lifted my heart. It made me feel like I can make it. It's not so bad. It's going to get better. Or maybe I just need to try this, and I can just do this. We can lift the heart with every conversation we have. We can ask the Holy Spirit to help us, but don't underestimate the impact of an encouraging word. It is just, make it your goal to encourage somebody every time you talk to someone. Make it your goal to let them come into your space feeling one way and leave your space feeling encouraged. We can do that in 30 seconds. The line's long, but gosh, you are so patient. I'm so impressed. Most people are not that patient. I'm not. And lastly, I wanted to say, let your prejudices melt away. We cannot be repelling people from our space and loving them at the same time when we've got prejudices that we're holding on to in our heart, and God is saying, let them melt away. I love the encounter of Jesus with the woman at the well. He was a man, he was a Jew. She was a woman, and she was a Gentile. Good reasons to not like each other in that day and age. Those were legit reasons. Jesus asks her for a drink of water. So in one sense, you think, oh, she's hosting him because she gets him a drink of water. But really, who was hosting who? How did she leave that encounter? And if you didn't know already, she left that encounter having been changed, having been encouraged. To host some people, we're going to have to let go of our prejudice. Now, Jesus never had a prejudice against this woman. He never did. But she certainly had a prejudice against him. And to get him a glass of water, she had to work through that real quick. Thankfully, she did. Because he says, if you knew who it was who was asking you for a glass of water, you would ask me for a glass of water, and I would give you living water, and you would thirst no more. What an exchange, just a couple minutes. And her heart is changed in that moment. And I think God is saying, will you partner with me in hosting the space around you so that when someone comes into your space, they leave with living water? And what was thirsty in them is quenched. You can tell. You can know. Don't discount. Don't think kids don't need encouragement. They need it all the time. Teenagers need it all the time. Sometimes it feels like you're speaking to a wall. I'm going to be honest. No offense, teenagers. But you put out something and it's like there's nothing, you know? And you're like, you are amazing. You are so, God did such a good job making you. You could say this to a 17-year-old. He loves you so much. He didn't make a mistake. You are incredible. And they're like, thanks. Just keep speaking it. Just keep showing that kind of hospitality. We can share an experience. We can meet a simple need. We can lift the heart, and we can let our prejudices go. Hospitality is an opportunity to partner with God, and we all host my space all the time. We will be in it for the rest of our life. You get a break when you fall asleep. But God's heart is that we host our space with hospitality and that we share his love. And so maybe we can choose, I'd like to challenge us to just choose maybe one of those things. Maybe just choose one thing that you can intentionally practice this week, even today. We have a Grace family lunch today, guys. Lots of moments for hospitality. Lots of them. You can own the conversation. Would you would you just own the conversation? I love this. I love it when people own the conversation. It makes it easy to have a conversation. Ask questions. Andrew told me a long time ago, I was like, I have a really hard time with like small talk and stuff, which is now not true. Of course, we all know that. But at the time, I was struggling. And he said, listen, everybody pretty much likes to talk about themselves. Just ask them questions about themselves. It was one of the best tips. I was like, so how are you? Oh, really? So where'd you go to school? Okay, so it works. And I can share too. I'm not wanting to, but own the conversation. Lead the conversation. Meet the simple need. Lift the heart. Don't have prejudices. Let them go. This is how the church is supposed to be. This is how strangers become friends. This is how the church was born in Philippi. And this is how Grace Chapel will move from where we are now to where we need to be as far as our community. We need a church full of people who are hospitable. That's what we need. We can do it. Let's pray together. Lord, I thank you for your faithfulness. Lord, I thank you for this heart of hospitality that has certainly blessed each one of us. We've been hosted in some way or other by somebody who shared your love. There was somebody that met a need for us, and we wondered why. There was somebody that loved us, and we're just wondering, why? What would make you do that? And it made us curious. And so, Lord, help us to do the same for the people around us. Help us to be aware and to invest in anybody who comes into our space, that they would leave better than they showed up. And we thank you, Lord. Can you stand with me? We're going to sing together and just close this, and then Pastor Andrew is going to come up and pray for us.